Well, I want to mention something to Brian. Um, when I was watching the way you put the roof supports in that kit, I said to myself, I should have waited because I just put those in. I'm building that as well. And I just put them in this afternoon and I put them in wrong. I put them in going across the wall instead of up in the corner. And it occurred to me, up in the corner would have been just as good and would have been a lot simpler to get them all even.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to kill either way as long
Oh
as they're
no,
all
I
at the
already
same
got
level.
I already got the roof glued in and it's level. It was just more work than what you did. So.
Yeah, I just find that the reason what I thought you were going to say is you put them in and you put them starting at the bottom, and they're a lot shorter than you thought they were going to be, because that is one of the things that I was going to just stick them at the bottom, and then it's like, let's just do a test fit. That roof looks way too low. So yeah, I kind
No,
of
I
do
did
a
glance at
test.
the instructions where Nick said something about 3/8 down from the top. So I set my depth gauge to 3/8 inch and put one in and said, yeah, that looks about right. And so I glued it in, but I've got to do the depth gauge on both ends since I'm gluing it horizontally. And then I had to do that ×4.
Yeah.
And as soon as I saw yours, I said, boy, that's easier.
It's
Live and learn.
it's funny. I kind of look at the instructions and I kind of look how I want to build it.
Yeah.
But no, his instructions are generally been pretty good on things that I've had from him, so that he's tried to think it through as fairly well, so that even if you're fairly experienced or not very experienced, they've been generally pretty straightforward to follow, and that can't be said for all kits.
No, the engineer in there is stellar.
Yeah.
The thing that I'm doing that's making this one a little challenging, I'm not using any paint on it. I'm doing all of the coloring with those Copic markers because they work so well on MDF. The problem is they work not as well on the plywood. So I'm having to do some finagling because of that. But so far, I only have a minuscule amount of paint on the whole thing.
Yeah, I don't I hate telling people how to do things the way they should or shouldn't type thing, because I kind of find that I kind of like the discovery sometimes. But everybody kind of, once they've done a few kits or a few models, they have their tried and true practices. But it's always good for them, myself included, obviously, to kind of see things like what we've seen tonight, where it's just like, hey, that's a good idea. And but I know I've seen people do certain techniques, and okay, well, I got to get some of whatever that is, and then it's just like I start trying, it's like, yeah, it's a really good technique if you've got it mastered, but it's not the technique I like doing. So it's just a frustration level at that point. But you have to be open to exploring those to kind of hit those things, because there's been things where I would have done it one way at one time, and then now I've got other things in the tool case, so to speak, to be able to do different things in different places. So in fact,
Yeah.
this
Well, that was
spraying the brick with the red oxide paint, I was like, are you crazy? That's never going to tone down. And it's just like, nope, it does. It actually works quite nicely.
Yeah, and that's where you fall back on past experience. You may not have done it for a year or two, but I know in the past I've used red oxide and somehow I made it come out looking like good brick. And sometimes it's rediscovering what you did sometime earlier, but aren't quite sure how you did it, but you like the way it came out.
Yeah. Well, I've resorted to a practice of, and this goes all the way back to architecture and university kind of days, when we used to sketch everything. And we used to have these hard covered sketchbooks. They're bound sketchbooks. So this isn't stuff that, you're necessarily just scrap scraps of paper type thing. This is stuff where you're gonna take notes and you're gonna do something here. It's something that you can kind of find later and come back to. And you know, even to the point where it's just like, okay, I need certain colors of paint. I'll paint them in this sketchbook on a page with some information about them, what I might have used them for, whatever, where did I find it? Because that paint might dry out and I got to go get some more, or that paint's gone. And when I go to the store, I want to be able to compare paints. So now I can take my sketchbook with me and there's a color palette, so to speak, or there's these things where it's just notes on how to do some of these processes. Because there was a gentleman that who lives up here, and he does detail piece painting, and it's amazing what he does. But it's just like there certain things that he does. There's a very set process in order to get the effect. So I've written out that process, and yes, it works, but I won't remember that process unless I have that kind of recipe to go back to, so to speak.
Oh yeah, I've got a few scraps of paper downstairs with procedures for layering colors to get a kind of rust color that I like. And if I'm going to use those paints to go for that effect, I have to look at the sheet of paper to remind myself how to do it.
I just find sheets of paper, and this is not a shot to anybody, but a sheet of paper will get lost, whereas my little notebook, a lot harder to lose. And I tend to take it with me. So I have like 2 or 3 sketchbooks. One sketchbook is when I'm coming up for ideas of buildings or scenes or whatever, I'm starting to sketch it out in there. And I'll, that's what that's for. But the other one is strictly, and it's a slightly smaller version type thing, but it's kind of a recipe book, so to speak, for modeling. And I don't have everything in there, but I'm kind of like, okay, when I've discovered something, or I've discovered a process, or a certain set of things that I want to use to get us something, I kind of write down that little recipe. And that way I've kind of got that to go back to, and it's handy versus it's filed away in a drawer somewhere. So that might be my tip to anybody who's having struggles with those types of things. Like there's been fantastic modelers here, and I don't know what everybody's got as their go-to as to how to do these things, or they just do it often enough that they don't need to remember things. But I find that I don't have that recall anymore.
Well, that's the beauty of nowadays having a camera in every phone. Is I take pictures as I go, more to refer back to how I did something in the past if I want to replicate it.
Yep, fair enough. Fair enough.
I have a question for Ted Becker. I see him working on his roundhouse, Ted. I wonder if you can hold it up over and show the very front where I know you're putting the track in. And I guess whatever you added in front, the very front, can you show that? Maybe a little closer.
All right.
What'd you
Yeah, this
put at
is,
the very front there?
Walther's Roundhouse, and what John is talking about is I have this on it's I got a layer of either cork or foam core on top of the blue foam. So what I did was to position the roundhouse relative to the turntable is I put this lip of gator board, which is a lot denser, and this curve fits right up against the rim of the Walther's turntable. And then if you can see these little triangular cutouts, there are matching triangles glued to the top of the layout, so that keys the roundhouse in place relative to the turntable. And I've been adding the track and the wiring, and you can see the wires. And what I discovered is at the end of the little groove for the rail, is I took a small drill bit, I forget what size, 32nd of an inch, 30,000, something like that. I drilled like at a 45-degree angle. And then I've been pre-soldering the wires to the end. And I pay attention to the which side of the rail I solder the wire so it's not on the flangeway side. And that just slips into the hole. And that's what I've been doing well this evening. Did that cover what you wanted to see, John?
Yeah, I wanted to see what, I hope I wanted to see what the very front looked like, how you had the rails sticking out and that gator board, is that what you called it?
Yeah, gator board. I glued it with this polyurethane glue. This is the same kind of chemistry as the original Gorilla Glue.
Yeah.
That seemed to be the best. And then what I'm going to do is on the rails here is I'm going to slide flex track ties on there so there's ties in that space.
Yeah.
And I will hold that engage.
Yeah. So yeah, looks good.
And I got another one of these to do. It's the bigger Walther's roundhouse because I'm going to have 12 roundhouse stalls in total. The 6 of the smaller roundhouse and then 6 of the what Walther's calls their modern roundhouse. Now that we're in the after show, it was something I wanted to show on my presentation about Zorro tools. For you guys in a colder climates, they also have replacement parts for monkeys.